Welcome to another edition of Mentoring Matters here at PAC 14. My name is Mark Thompson. I'm the coordinator for equity assurance and student mentoring at the Wicomico County Board of Education. And today I'm excited to have in our studios today Mr. Donnie Waters. Donnie, welcome to Mentoring Matters.
Thanks, Mark, for welcoming me and having me at Mentoring Matters.
Well, just to let our audience know, we're here. This is National Mentoring Month, and I thought it would be more exciting to have an actual mentor come in to talk about their experiences that they've had, because mentoring does make a difference. Donnie, you've been mentoring for how long now?
Well, that's a good question, because as I reflect on it, probably started in elementary school, to be quite candid. It wasn't as formalized in terms of the program, but they used to do peer-to-peer kind of mentoring, where students who were excelling and doing well in class, they would have you or group you with other students and to try to encourage them to do better in school. That was just one aspect of it.
No, that's interesting. You said that word encouraging. As a mentor, what do you think is your prime responsibility as a mentor with a child that you see?
I believe the primary issue to resolve is just developing a relationship and a rapport with the mentee, trying to figure out what it is they're looking at in terms of goals, life goals, what they would like to be in life, and then also encouraging them to realize that they can achieve their goals.
Now, I know you're mentoring now at Prince Street Elementary.
That's correct.
When you came in there, did you choose a child, or did we assign one to you? Do you remember how that went down?
That's a pretty good question. What happened was I was substituting at Prince Street, and this young person was actually in the class that I was teaching. And one day you and I spoke about the state of our kids in the school system and their need for support and encouragement, so forth. And you just asked me, would I be interested in becoming a mentor? And interestingly enough, the individual that you identified was actually one of my students.
Yeah. Now, it was funny. I do remember that now. Now, when I asked you, did you have a sense, I can't remember, did you say no or did you say yes right away?
Well, what I said to you in response was I would definitely be interested if the mentee and the mentee's parent or support system or guardian would commit, and we could sit down and have a conversation prior to me obligating myself.
And that's how easy it is when we pair people. But I liked your attitude that you said you wanted someone, you took on this challenge, and this young person was a little difficult, had a lot of issues. Do you see that a lot of our young people, and I want to talk about this because we're about the same age. I can see a little.
Yeah, you might be a few years older.
Few years older. But from when we were growing up,
right?
Even from on television,
yes,
it was different. So things have changed. What have you noticed from when you were growing up and the issues that you went through when you were a child compared to what's going on now in this young man's life?
That's a very good question. And there's research to support what I'm about to say. I'm not going to list off all of the research, but what has happened, I believe, since I was that age in elementary school until now, is that there's been a significant breakdown, not only in the family structure, but also in terms of the community support systems and infrastructure. When I was coming along, your parents, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, your cousins, extended family, and anyone in the community could provide support, direction, and nurturing, and they did it willingly. And for the most part, because I don't want to wax nostalgic and say there weren't any problems at all, but for the most part, they guided us toward doing the correct things.
And I guess that goes back to that adage, it takes a village to raise a child. When we were growing up, I remember when I was growing up, my grandmother, when my parents went to school, my grandmother took care of me. But even back in those days, my grandmother must have been in her 70s. Now we're seeing grandparents in their 30s. So times have really changed. But when you came in, how did you get that connection with that young man? Because I've seen you in action with this young man. And again, this was a young man that didn't want to have anything to do with anyone. But how did you develop that relationship?
Well, there is a basic need for all of us, and that is to be loved and to find other people in this world that would be supportive of us. It's a basic need. And I think if we stop trying to shape individuals and take the part, my position is that I'm trying to assist that person in being the best person that they can be. So I'm not comparing them with anyone other than themselves, and encouraging them to be better and trying to implement or share different strategies and techniques that will help them achieve that goal.
Okay. Can you share something with our audience? What do you say? Like if I was your mentee, what's a typical discussion that you two might have?
Well, it depends. We do things in terms of what he may be interested in. We go to sporting events, and then certain things may arise. And let's take a difficult situation where he's had a challenging day. And I will ask him directly, what transpired? How did you feel about that? What do you think? What do you think we could do to correct that? And then I just open up kind of a candid and honest discussion where I'm not judging him. And it's like unconditional love and support. Not judging and not condemning and not even grading, as a matter of fact. But all we're trying to figure out is what happened, what transpired, and how we can get the best outcome in the future. And the other part of it is get them to release that luggage of having a misstep or not doing as well. That's in the past. So now let's understand where we are, get some stability, regroup, and reimagine ourselves as being successful as we go forward.
Yeah, that's some good advice to give there. But how often do you see your mentee?
Well, I believe the program was originally set up that you come in and do like an hour a week, I believe, with the mentee.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, it has evolved to be a little bit more than that. Not only am I in the school, but I'm also engaged with him after school. And it's like a one-parent family. He's being raised by his mother. So she's involved in everything. She knows where we're going. Everything is planned out. And he gets rewards, little things that he might want to do outside of the ordinary. If he has good behavior, good conduct, he performs well in school and at home. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to be perfect. There are going to be some missteps. But the real important thing for me is to just recalibrate and then try again.
Okay. Well, I'm completely amazed. I've seen the transformation of this young man, and you're doing an excellent job. Let me ask you before I'll let you go. We're trying to develop more mentors in our school system. What would you say to someone who's standing on the sidelines, who's not sure if they want to be a mentor? What would you say to them?
I believe, again, unofficially, mentoring has been a part of, I'll say, our DNA ever since the beginning. Because you've got to imagine, and I'm going to say this because this month, 1863, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which was the liberation of slaves, but just in actually the southern states or the rebelling states. So you have to ask the question, how did, after 1863, and then you get 10 to 12 years later, you start to have the erection of institutions dedicated towards the education of children of former slaves. So there is no one person or group of people that were more ill prepared than slaves, but yet they were able to erect higher learning institutions. Their children went on to build and be part of the building of America. And all of that, I would say, is because those that were somewhat more advanced or inclined academically and very adept at handling finances, they shared those characteristics and those skills with others in the community. And so what I would say to those that are sitting on the sidelines, this is our future. And a lot of these children are your children, your grandchildren, your nieces and nephews, and you're at the point or juncture in life where you've had a successful run of life, then it should be a thought, what can I do to give back to help someone else? So I would encourage them to look toward, especially the elementary schools, because we can make a big impact for future generations if we get them when they're young, and see how they can participate, coming in, showing their face, being a volunteer, helping some of the teachers in the class, and so forth.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you. Just to get off the subject a little bit.
Yes.
We went to this event we were part of the other day where they had this thing called Watchdogs, and I
Yes.
talked to some.
Yes.
There must have been over 170 men. What do you think about all those men coming together at Prince Street School?
I think the biggest benefit was that all of the children, if you looked at the faces of the children, the smiles on their face, their body language, they were sitting erect and standing erect. They were really, the children were really proud and happy that their fathers or their uncles or grandfathers were there to support them, and that they were there in front of the administrators and some of the teachers. So I think it was a very good emotional boost and confidence building for the children. And it should also have been or serve as a real strong stiff hand to come to welcome the men into the building to be part of a healthy educational process for the students.
Okay. Well, once again, thank you so much for being a mentor, and we appreciate all that you do, and keep doing it.
Quite welcome, Mark, and thanks for inviting me. It's a humbling experience to participate in another individual's life and have a positive impact. That's my blessing. And hopefully the interaction between me and this mentee and then some of his other students see this. Hopefully it'll propel them as they move forward toward graduating in a few years.
Okay.
They'll remember that, and I will have made a significant impact. Thank you.
Well, you sure are. Next in our studio, I have a young man that I met. I was coming by his school one day and looking for a mentor. And there was this gentleman sitting out on the picnic table out front of the school, and I wasn't sure who he was. And they said, that's Mr. Jim Doyle. Mr. Doyle, welcome to Mentoring Matters.
Thank you for having me here.
That was incredible, because when I went into the school, seriously, I went into the school and I said, I think I was looking for a picture for a mentor and a mentee. And they said, Mr. Doyle is here. You got to get his picture.
Oh, really?
They really respect you over there. How long have you been mentoring now?
Well, it's been 6 years.
6 years. So tell me, you started mentoring you're at, where are you now?
I'm at the East Salisbury
Okay.
with a young man, and I started with him at Beaver Run when he was in kindergarten. And it was fun. And I was like, gee whiz, what do I want to do this for? But when you start, it's so much fun. And so I really did enjoy doing it.
What made you start? I mean, how did that come about?
Well, actually, it came about in a couple of ways. A lady in our church suggested that I might want to mentor this young man who was just starting school. And I said, wow, what do I know about this? But then he was the age of one of my grandsons. So I said, well, that'll be interesting. I'd like to see what goes on. And so I did. His parents wanted a mentor for him, and I agreed to do that. And I had a lot of fun. My wife was also mentoring at the time, a high school student. And I thought, wow, how's this old guy going to go in and mentor a kindergarten kid?
Yeah.
But I enjoyed working with my grandson, so it was a pleasure to go work with him.
Wow. Can you think back 6 years ago? Do you remember that first time when you came in and they paired you with this young man? How that
Well,
experience
yes,
went?
I'd go into the classroom and the teacher was very accepting. It was like, oh, gee, you can go right here. I guess the biggest thing that hit me was how many students wanted a mentor. They would grab a hold of me and say, can you get me a mentor, and things like that. I said, wow, I can't do this but for one kid at this point. You could work with a few kids at a time, but it was very important. Those kids, and they still do that. They don't touch me or anything like that, but they are like, gee, can I get a mentor?
they gravitate to you.
Well, they did, and I was surprised at that.
And that's what we tell people. Just you'll never experience the joy of when you walk into a room and your mentee plus the other students want to come to you.
Right.
Can you tell me a typical day?
I
with
was
you?
there this week on Wednesday, and I go into the classroom, and the whole classroom yells out, "Oh!" They yell out the student's name, and they say, "Your mentor is here," and it's like the whole room comes to a halt. Let's get him out of here.
Wow, you're like a rock star when you come
No,
in
I'm
there.
not like a rock star, but they really enjoy that.
Yeah.
And my typical day is, just this week I went in, I spent about an hour working with him on something I hadn't done in a long time, and that was adding, subtracting, and multiplying fractions.
The new math.
No, there was nothing new about this. It was, I had to go review the stuff myself so I'd know what I was talking about. But the teacher is very accepting in the classroom. She makes it easy for me. I can sit in the classroom and work with the young man if I want, or I can go. I usually end up down the hallway somewhere. And but this week we were able to get into the media center, which was empty at the time, and we had a very nice one-on-one working with the young man.
Wow, that's amazing. So you said kindergarten. Now he's in
5th grade.
5th grade. What kind of changes have you seen from kindergarten to now?
He's grown quite a bit, and he's always been a very pleasant, positive young man. So I don't have problems that we might expect or so. It's just a pleasure to work with him. He's such a pleasant young man. And when I walk with him somewhere in the school, other people call him by name. It's like he's a little star himself.
Wow.
And it's very good.
Wow.
I enjoy working with the young man.
That's incredible. And you said something to me that his culture is different from yours.
Yes.
How did you adjust to that, or was there an adjustment period?
No, it's not a problem. I spent many years working in the university system and worked with all levels of students, all kinds of students. It's not a problem at all.
Good.
It's easy, really.
It's easy.
Because
And that's what
you
I
just
tell
think of we're people.
That's the key. I know sometimes people, and I want you to comment on this. Some people say, well, I got to get, I'm not sure because I'm not like them. I haven't been in their situation before. What would you say to someone on the sidelines that wants to be a mentor but not sure if they fit in?
I think they should get over that attitude. They do fit in. We're all humans, so let's work with one another.
That's the key.
That's what I'm trying.
That's the key. With mentoring, do you remember, and I mentioned it to my previous guest, that times have changed since when we were growing up. What do you see the biggest changes from when we were growing up to what kids face now?
I think it's the electronics, and it's easy to blame electronics, but we love them, we like them. I mean, I do too. But I think it's easy for a young man or a lady maybe to get caught up in that too much and not spending enough time reading. It bothers me if I see the TV is the inordinate amount of time in his home, but it's not my business.
Yeah.
But I encourage him. I usually pick up books, taking books every week. I'll take him magazines, National Geographic or whatever that we're finished with, and say, look, maybe you'd like to look through this, and usually point out an article or something in there for him. It's difficult in an hour to do a lot of reading, but I'm just encouraging him to do something with that. May work with him on the spelling words or whatever he has that week, but you just look for opportunities. I don't worry. There's no big problem with intercultural things here.
That's that word again, encouraging. So as a mentor, what do you think your biggest responsibility is for that young man?
Basically to listen, because when I go in, I'm always asking him if there's something going on that he would like to share with me. I always want to check to see whether or not there's any bullying going on with him. I make sure he knows he's not to be bullying people, and I don't think he would. And but it's just, I want to listen to what he has to say. I give him a few minutes to do that. And I say, what do you want us to work on today? What would you like to work on? Is there something? And his most recent concern has been math. So I focus my efforts on that at this point.
I like what you said, you prepare before you go into school.
Oh, yes.
Wow, that's
Well,
incredible.
I wake up sometimes at night saying, how am I going to help him understand the difference between multiplying and subtracting and adding? all those teachers done all this, but he didn't necessarily get it. So I try and figure out some novel way so that he will get it.
Wow. Now I understand why the school loves you so much. You have such a passion for our young people.
Well, you're very kind, but I'm just doing what a normal person would do, I think.
And that's the key. So again, we're trying to recruit and get more people coming into our school system to be mentors. What would you say to the person out there that wants to be a mentor, or how would you recruit mentors?
I would say pick up the phone and call the mentoring project, call Wicomico County Board of Education, and get a hold of Mr. Mark Thompson, and he will help you do that. It's easy. You do need to go through a couple of hours of training once a year. That's really a requirement that they have. And you just show up at the school once a week at least, which is what I do. And I've been there a couple times a week sometimes. But you go in and you sign in, and they're very accepting. The principal is very accepting. The teachers are. They really relish or enjoy having someone come in the classroom who will help work with that student.
Well,
not a
that
problem.
is perfect. In fact, we're going to use you for our advertisement, because that's perfect. I really admire and appreciate what you do for all of our children. Let me ask you before I let you go. A final question here is, you've been from kindergarten through
Fifth grade.
Fifth grade. Where do you see yourself going on with this?
Well,
young man?
like I say, every once in a while, I'll ask him, do you want to continue with this? And he will say, oh, yes. And I say, well, that's up to you. I said, if you reach the point where you don't need me to be here, you let me know. And so, but every year I sign up again, and I say if he wants to do that, and he does, and I think he enjoys it too.
That's amazing.
yeah.
I can't wait to see that day when he graduates from high school, and you'll be right there.
Well, I hope I'm still around.
Wow. Well, we pray for that and good health. But
Yeah.
I really appreciate all that you do. You're one of our amazing mentors that we have in our school system. You make such a difference. When we say mentoring makes a difference, I could put the name Jim Doyle right there. So
Well,
I appreciate what you.
That's
what
very
you do.
kind of you, and I appreciate your comments. But
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to me. I get as much or more out of it than he does, I think.
That's
Yeah.
good. Any last comments before we sign off today?
I just want to say thanks to all the people who make it possible to do the mentoring. I think it's very nice when the Shorebirds help sponsor a ball game for the mentees to attend, and that kind of a thing. It's just very nice when the community jumps in and helps with this.
It is. We're talking about being mentors is important. Did you have a mentor when you were growing up?
Not per se, but in the neighborhood where I grew up, yes, that was in Somerset County. And there were always neighbors, people I worked with, cut lawns, whatever, and these people were like mentors to me. They took care of things for me. My parents did everything they could, but there was always someone there who was helping me do something, and I really appreciated that.
And that's the community aspect coming
Yes.
together. Do you see that now? It's sometimes we talk about it takes a community or it takes a village to raise a child. But do you see that same aspect these days now as we get older in our lives?
I do see some of that, yes. I think it's very good. I think if you live off somewhere by yourself, it's a little more difficult. But no, I see the community helping in ways like that. I think, what the mentoring project does in terms of putting people together and helping develop that sense of community is what's very good.
And that is really important. Let me ask, you said just young man is a nice young man. Sometimes there's a misunderstanding, I think, with mentors. They think that they're only supposed to mentor bad kids.
No.
But mentoring is for everybody, don't you think?
Well, yes. And I think many people do get mentoring from others in the community where they live. They don't necessarily show up in the school. But I do think there is a need for people such as myself to get involved again in the community, to go to the school if possible and work with a young person. I think they will get more out of that than they realize.
In return.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, when you mention that, what do they call you when you come into school? How do they greet you? What's their name they give you? Do you know?
Oh, the students don't know me per se. They might say Mr. Jim,
Mr. Jim?
or they might say your mentor is
Uh-huh.
here. But they will call the student my name, and he calls me Mr. Jim.
Mr. Jim.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. We try to talk to our mentors, and sometimes I think children try to get too personal with adults, and they call them by their first name.
No.
But I think that respect is like what you have there.
That's right.
Call him Mr. Yeah, because I always they call me Mr. Mark all the time, and I forgot my last name was Thompson. It was always Mr. Mark. And even the adults now, when I go in the stores, have you seen your mentor outside of school?
Oh yes.
And what happened when you see him outside of school?
Oh, it's like we know each other. Oh, it's a very good relationship. I have a friend who works with this young man's family, and we see him and his family sometimes outside the school. But of course, as a part of the mentoring project, I don't deal with him outside the school except in occasional meetings and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's one I always stress to our mentors. We, as a Wicomico Mentoring Project, it's just that 45 minutes to an hour a week in the school. But we encourage people, if they want to do things outside of school, to sign up for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and then you could take them out, take them on trips and things like that. But we like to make sure that we are, for our liability, we cover you inside the schools. So
Right.
I really, again, appreciate all that you do, Mr. Jim. Mr. Jim Doyle, and your wife too, also, because this is a family affair for mentoring.
She doesn't have one currently.
Okay.
She's involved in too many other things right now, but no, she did serve as a mentor for a few years.
Well, we have to get her back on board here, because I think the Doyle family is an excellent family for that. For this year, my goal is to have 1,000 mentors come into our school system. We've had wonderful partnerships with University of Maryland Eastern Shore basketball team. Wicomico County Executive Bob Culver just signed a new policy that went into effect this week to allow county employees to have time off to come into our schools to mentor. And there's so many numerous other organizations that Salisbury University that does outstanding work with us. So we are encouraging more people to come in, and as Mr. Doyle said, it's easy. Contact me, we'll get you trained, and you still have time. We still have a lot of school year left to make a difference in a child's life. Once again, this is Mark Thompson for Mentoring Matters, letting you know that mentoring makes a difference.